Jeff Apodaca?
Yes.
Welcome to
Let's Meet in the Middle.
I think so. Today's topic is important. I mean, I think we meet in the middle right off the bat. We're going to talk about mental illness.
I'm passionate about today's topic, mental health.
We have some great experts on today.
And dealing with teenagers is important. And I think if you watch the show today, you're going to learn a lot. We're going to put some tools in your tool bag and definitely things to think about.
More importantly, I think we want to communicate more. But you know, and this on the topic this weekend. I was kind of up in Santa Fe this week. I was up in Santa Fe this weekend. North of 40.
Pictures looked fun, by the way.
North of 40, which is a new foundation we started. We were celebrating our 40-year reunion of winning state.
Very cool.
40-year reunion. It's my 40th year of coming up of surviving cancer. There's some pictures right there.
I'm glad you made it, by the way.
Well, and hold on.
Otherwise, we wouldn't be here.
You were making fun of my little white hat.
See, I wasn't going to bring it up.
Well, you know, you said that I'm look like a 90.
It's okay.
And I tried to explain to Eric.
I get your aging
the picture with the football team. I had to take a picture at the end of the season, and I had
more understanding.
The white hat was a symbol of me going through cancer 40 years ago.
I get it.
So I wore the white. I'm telling you this to make you feel bad. So I wore the white hat to basically the symbol at the fundraiser. And by the way, very proud of my classmates, both from '79 all the way to '84. We got a whole group together, Santa Fe and St. Mike's.
That's really cool.
And we raised $25,000, and hopefully still counting. But I think it hits home because we're raising money for activities for kids to stay engaged.
That's a really cool cause.
And I guarantee you we're going to be talking about it on this show.
30,000 plus, or 25,000, and hopefully moving up more.
And we're going to do this every year. Create a foundation called North of 40 because we're all over 40.
And I'll be more understanding about you looking more elderly and seasoned, and so I'll try not to make fun of you as much as I can.
If I look this good because I'm 90, look at that. Look at that, 90. You said I look 90 in that hat. That's pretty good. What's going on in your world? What's going on in your world? Because by the way, I heard you rant the other day about the
Ukraine brain drain. That's my radio show. I coined that term, by the way. Yeah, you can tune into the House of Strauss every Saturday and Sunday, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m.
But hold on.
News Radio, KKOB.
You ranted.
It's a nothing burger. It's a giant nothing burger.
I will agree that probably nothing's going to come out of this.
Nothing burger.
You have a president of the United States.
Millions of dollars wasted.
You have a president of the United States basically saying, hey, I'll send you money, but do me a favor.
Didn't say anything like that. There's not, and you're falling prey to the fake media because I read the entire phone call.
So did I. So did I, by the way.
He never said, I'm going to withhold your aid. I'm going to withhold your aid if you don't investigate Biden. Nothing in there like that.
Of course he didn't say it that way.
He didn't say it. Wasn't even close.
You have a president. By the way, dude, let me tell you something.
You had a president of the United States sending a guy to Ukraine.
When you're running for office,
when you're running for office,
and you hold office,
nobody cares about that.
when you hold office, that's night and day, or that's two different stories. But let me give you. When you're running for office, okay.
He's not running. He's the president.
He's running for office. He's running for re-election. What are you talking about?
He's the president right now.
Exactly.
He's not running for office right now.
Sure he is.
No.
He just had a fundraiser here in New Mexico. What are you talking about? He raised $250,000 here in New Mexico. And he raised $250,000 at a fundraiser. He's running for president, by the way.
I think he raised like $6 million for the
He raised $250,000 here in New Mexico. My point is, he's running for office. For a person running for office that holds office,
he's president.
And basically saying, hey, do me a favor. Can you look into these servers? Can you look into this? And by the way, I'm not saying those things don't need to look into.
So the servers are connected to Biden?
He asked the Ukraine government to look into some servers that might have some
that the Democrat Party might have used to attack him when he was first running to president.
But you have a sitting president. But you have a sitting president using that influence.
But do you see this rabbit hole that the Democratic Party is going down now?
Do you understand the Constitution of the United States?
Yes, I do.
By the way,
where we do
meet in the middle, I do think
millions wasted.
That nothing's going to happen from this.
Millions of wasted
And by the way, it's not going to affect the election one bit because 65% of the people don't
approve.
Give a hoot.
Give a hoot.
Give a hoot.
But his approval rating keeps going up, by the way.
I haven't seen that.
It is.
Haven't seen it.
Yeah, it is.
Anyway,
so Steelers. Monday night, I just want to give a stupid plug for the Steelers. Okay, go Steelers.
Go Steelers. Oh, my God. And my Raiders won. So
yes.
there you go.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Anyway, today's topic is going to be very, very serious. We're talking about
Yeah.
teen suicide and teen mental health. And
a
I know
poignant show that's.
I know, and we
yeah.
rant a little bit, but we difference. But
yeah.
we both agree on this. We wanted to do this show. It's been brought to Jackie's attention,
Yep.
to Linda's attention. We wanted
Three
to do
teens
three teens
in
at
6
Eldorado
weeks.
High School. At Eldorado High School has committed
That's
suicide.
epidemic.
So everybody, please stick with the show. We're going to talk about teen suicide and how we can solve some of these problems after these commercials.
In a time of a divided America, two people from different points of view sit down to talk about the problems, to talk about ideas, to talk about life, and to find common ground. It is now time for Let's Meet in the Middle with your hosts Eric Strauss and Jeff Apodaca.
Welcome back to Let's Meet in the Middle. Joining us now is Dr. Sandra Herrera Spinelli, and you are a doctor of social work, family studies, interventions, and you're creating a whole wellness center. We'll talk about that later on in the show. But today we've been talking about mental health, depression. There's a lot of stories in the news and a lot of things that are going on.
To be very frank, what brought the conversation up is last week we were talking with our wives, and Eldorado High has had 3 suicides in the last 6 weeks, and
That's alarming.
That's alarming.
Yeah.
In fact, to be very frank, we asked APS to be on the show today. They were planning on it, and they actually canceled because they're having emergency strategy meetings today to deal with some of this epidemic. And whether it's APS or even you look at Rio Rancho or other schools, I mean, New Mexico, I believe, we're ranked 5th in the country on teen suicides. And so I think it's a topic we need to discuss and come across and see why and what's going on.
And before the show, you had said that you just got a 3-year-old, as a new client. And so why are people depressed? Like in general, what are you seeing right now?
So prevention, right? So prevention, this 3-year-old, and actually is being adopted, and so prevention. So we're getting in and supporting the adoptive parents and making sure, and supporting the attachment, because relationship has a lot to deal with mental health. And so part of our model at Wellness from Within is really building on relationships. And what you will experience different in our agency than others is that we do integrate the family, because 1 hour with a mental health professional isn't going to stop the suicide epidemic, isn't going to stop the depression, isn't going to stop. It's the integration of the family and working on the relationship. We are definitely living in a different society than when we grew up back, where there was more relationship interaction. And I think that youth are experiencing a lot of different social experiences than we ever did. And I feel very honored that I have teens who are sharing me their dating experiences at 12 and 13, and and what they're already the pressures that they're already getting.
We have kids, and my boys are 11 now. They're twins. They're in 5th grade, and we went through some of this with our boys, and I think that's why we kind of talked a little bit about it. This weekend I was at a 40-year reunion from high school. And we had many conversations of activities. In fact, we created a foundation to raise money for activities and school activities, because even at our age, we were so engaged in the community, so engaged in school with each other. We're just not seeing that with this generation. Is it the lack of opportunities for kids? Is it the lack?
To connect the dots of what you're saying is, you immediately came out of the gate and said relationships, right?
Yeah.
And what is the difference between a modern day relationship and how many times you go to a restaurant and you see kid on phone, parent on phone, dad on phone, sister on phone, and nobody's even talking?
The structure of the relationship one of the biggest issues that you're seeing?
What we know is that interpersonal relationships are a mode of healing. And so if you look at, so this is what I will, interneural biology, interpersonal neurobiology, and it talks about the brain development when we're in relationship. And so it's hard, you know, it's because you would have to actually do actual research. I'm being very careful because you have to gather data and really, but relationships are definitely changing. One of the things that I can tell you, so I've been in mental health for 20 years, and I've worked with foster adoptive biological families. I've worked with adolescents, and I mean, I've worked with different systems, but consistently, where you see the most success is when the family system is integrated into the well-being of the child. Because when you identify just the child as the problem, you then not explore and provide improved communication or whatever it is that's happening for that individual child. So part of where part of the reason I've also went on my own 7 years ago is to be able to create a model where we have access and integrating, practicing what not only that I believe, but also the research shows, because family systems really is what helps children get better who have mental health issues.
Right.
So I mean,
that's a huge.
But in the state of New Mexico, if we're right, and I get that poverty and I get that rural community versus metropolitan areas play into it, but what are we seeing at the? I mean, to have 10, 11, 3-year-olds, and I get the family core, but to have 10, 12, 13 teenagers wanting to take their lives, or boys over girls, 3 times greater to attempt suicide across the country and in New Mexico. What's happening at the teenage level that is so bad? Like when I was a kid, I can't even imagine thinking about killing myself. That was so bad. But
there's 2 factors. Okay, first we have to identify. Okay, I thought when people talk about adolescents, teenagers, they're having harbos, blah, blah, blah. I was like, come on, like, what are you talking about?
We've always had those.
Right, we've
always had those.
However, I have to just, like, the big eye-opener is to have, to be working with families, 5 different family systems, like a single parent, having 2-parent, having adopted parent, and they're all working with adolescents, right? And to see, oh my God, the behaviors consistent through all the 5 different adolescents. So that was like my big eye-opener, that there is a lot of biological stuff that's happening. Okay, so that's one, right? It's just that developmentally, if you do a comparison of developmental stages, the only other part of huge development that we have during adolescence is during toddlerhood. Those 2, the body is undergoing huge developmental experiences, okay? So the other thing is the access to information. Like when we were talking about when we were growing up, the thing is, it's amazing what kids have access to now that we didn't have.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, I mean, even if you're looking at, pornographic stuff.
Yeah, no, we dealt with that last year. Our kids were 9 and 10, and we dealt with older brothers showing that to younger kids in the neighborhood, and and you're talking about 9, 10-year-olds. So we know
exactly. The access to information like that is just so easy. It's like that. It's in the snap of our fingers in comparison. So access to information, right? So we have developmental issues that are happening. Access to information, and the other would be access to, but also, God, bullying.
Yeah.
The ease of social...
The ease of bullying.
Bullying on social media.
Like
the ease of bullying and the access you have to the bullier, right? And the bullyee. That
comparison,
access is...
right? Because before it would just be at school, right?
You could go home and you were safe, you know?
So...
What are some solutions? Like, because look, technology, we can blame it on technology. And by the way, I was with some folks the other day that are in your profession, and they said this is the greatest tool in the world. This is the biggest harm in the world, right? Because of that. And so we know that's not going away.
Right.
So as a community, as an organization, as a school, as a public school system, as professionals, what can we do to protect our children? Because I can't imagine suicide is going to continue to go up and go rampant. We have to address it somehow.
Yeah, and
maybe actually having some honest conversation that this is a problem, because we're hearing so much of the oxygen in the room is getting sucked up by big headline stories, mass shootings or whatever it is, and behind the scenes, I'll just give you the numbers. In 2017, 5,016 males, 1,225 females between ages of 15 and 24 committed suicide.
Well, there were 46 teenagers that committed suicide last year in New Mexico.
And
46.
10th leading cause of death in the U.S. right now.
Right.
And we're worried about, and all the headlines are getting sucked up by all of the other stuff, and now behind the scenes, like driving. Teens are dying at an alarming rate driving. And mental health, and all of this is getting, the headlines are sucking up the rest of it. How can we get more attention to mental health? That's kind of why we wanted to do this show, I think. It's just not getting enough attention.
It's just not getting enough attention.
So my training and profession is as a social worker, right? And so it's very systemic. And so the things, New Mexico is so we're a poor state, and so lots of areas. So solutions so what I would say as a parent, I am a mother, the focus is how can we encourage parents to see our adolescents, even though they're independent, that they still need us.
Yes.
And I think that's like a really, it might seem very minute, but
that's huge.
Because we see the physical growth, right? And we get the attitude, and oh my God, as a mother, I could so see how I would want to disengage because there's so much of, so much resistance.
Yes.
But we have to envision that's how it was when they were 2. But when they were 2, they were cute and they were small, and we could easily contain them, right? But they were still fighting for their independence. And so even though they're fighting for their independence, they still need us as their guide. They still need us with their crazy hair, with their attitude, to still remain calm and confident and to say no. Right?
Yeah.
When we need to, because we did that before, right? But there's this whole developmental thing, and please, I hope no one's walking away that this is not blaming parents. I'm just trying to give a new paradigm. How can we connect and not disconnect? Because I think what happens with adolescents, I think there's more disconnection because we think, oh well, they're independent, they're ready, and they're not. Developmentally, they're not ready. There's so much biologically disarray happening that they need us to contain them more.
And I want to hit this a little bit harder because this is I'm teaching for 25 years, dealing with parents, and trying to teach kids and even parents that, a teenager is one of the most impulsive beings you will ever meet because they don't have clear decision-making abilities. But you get this. 2 of my worst parent-teacher conferences, I know immediately when it begins with, my daughter is my best friend, I know things are going to go south quickly.
Right.
Because they're viewing that daughter on the same, and nothing against the parent. I get their heart's in the right place. You want to be close to your kids.
The kid wants structure. The kid wants leadership.
I know, as much as they tell you no.
But here's,
they do.
They do.
Absolutely.
And that's the real issue is I think engaging parents to understand that these kids developmentally are like 5-year-olds or 2-year-olds because, 2-year-olds because they're just impulsive creatures. My great kid, I can't believe they made this decision. Well, if you understood the science behind their brains, and maybe we could talk about more of that when we come back.
Because
and we want to get to your book too. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Only because I'm not making this up. This is not my research, but it's called "Hold On to Your Kids: Why Parents."
Hold it up a little bit.
Where do you want it? Okay. Hold on to your kids: Why parents need to matter more than their peers, and that's the key. That's the key. Is the peers, because when you were talking that adolescents need and want this structure, guess what? If they don't get it from the parents, then
they're going to go get it from somewhere
peers,
else.
Right, and then unfortunately the peers don't have their brains developed either, right? And so then you have 2, and then that's where the attachment, and so they're going to follow the masses who are just trying to
Well,
find their way.
We're going to come back.
So many
I want you to stick
epiphanies,
around. We're going to come back on our next segment. I want to deal with some of that. So we'll be back right after this commercial.
Okay, thank you.
And I want to thank our sponsors, Indigo Mortgage and Ryan Soenvac. But we'll be back right after this.
I'm Ben Lucero, president and owner of Indigo Mortgage. We are a locally owned and operated mortgage company right here in New Mexico. This means your loan officers and processors are right here to serve you. Indigo Mortgage offers better rates and terms than that of big banks and out-of-state lenders. Our mortgage divisions include residential, commercial, construction, reverse mortgages, and VA mortgage loans. Let us serve you with an exemplary level of care. Indigo Mortgage, because nobody cares more about your mortgage loan.
Ryan Sewing and Vacuum is New Mexico's #1 brother dealer. Brother's new Luminaire has a built-in projection system which helps with quilting, embroidering, and sewing. Ryan's has a variety of machines to satisfy quilters, sewers, embroiders, and long armors. We offer the finest vacuums like Miele, Riccar, and Lindhaus. Check out our fantastic selection of fabrics and sewing furniture. We also offer classes, repair, and financing. Drop by our store in Albuquerque and Santa Fe. Ryan Sewing and Vacuum, serving New Mexico for 37 years.
Welcome back to Let's Meet in the Middle. Joining us now are Sabrina Cooley and, of course, welcoming back Sandra Herrera Spinelli. And Sabrina, you are a nursing instructor, and we welcome you to Let's Meet in the Middle. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And
Thank
Sandra,
you.
we've been talking a lot about mental health and your mental health center that you've created because you couldn't find something out there that worked for you, so you made your own thing. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty awesome, right?
Yeah, you summarized that. All right, yeah. That's a good one.
But one of the things I want to talk about in this
Yeah.
segment more than anything else is we talked about, and Sabrina, that's why you agreed to come on the show, because you deal with nurses, you deal with suicide, you deal with those kind of things. What's going on within the school pressure today? Because New Mexico, according to articles I've read, we're ranked 5th in the country in teenage suicide.
That's
Alarming. That's alarming. We had 46 suicides last year. What brought this conversation up is Eldorado High has had 3 suicides in the last 6 weeks, and the #1 thing Jackie and I are hearing from parents is that APS and the administration are like pushing it under. And we invited APS to be on the show today, and they actually had to cancel on us because they're having emergency meetings today to deal with this situation. And coincidentally, I just came back from my 40-year reunion of a bunch of stuff in Santa Fe. So the pressures that we felt must be so different today, and that we're young. We have young kids that are 11. What are you seeing out there, you know, what are you seeing out there at the school pressure level that you're seeing in your past job? And Doctor, I want to get back to you too on that.
Yeah, we have to stop being afraid to have uncomfortable conversations. And this is something that, we have to keep up with as kids' lives change and technology's introduced. We have to change, and we have to be willing to be brave and put ourselves out there and start a conversation with someone that we're concerned about. We have to make sure that we're supporting teachers and parents so that they have the tools and the understanding so that they can make meaningful interventions. And so, kids today are stressed. We have a media that sometimes can be really negative. Like you said, sometimes students feel disconnected from their parents, and they're relying on their peers for that kind of support. So making sure that we have a supportive environment that really lets students know that there is hope, that there are people that care about them, and creating that kind of environment in schools is really going to be necessary, as we can see.
Doctor, in your practice, teenagers, let's just focus in on teens right now. What are they, and I know you can't talk about what they talk about, but what are they dealing with today that maybe we didn't deal with 40 years ago, for me at least? And then one of the things I want to talk about is thank you very much, is medication. Because some of the people that we've talked about is if we don't create that structure for teens, some of the biggest issues is they will go self-medicate themselves, and that's when they get into drugs, alcoholism, things like that. And is that leading into some of this situation in New Mexico?
Or when they're put on meds and nobody follows up with them. How many times have we seen that? So go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So medication, it's such a delicate topic because when it works, and when it doesn't, there's, it's scary. And the truth is, there's limited research on what are the benefits on youth and medication. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but the research we were just talking about, the research is usually middle-aged males that they are changing, but what we also have to know is that research takes so long. By the time the research is coming up, it's
too late for a lot of these kids.
Yeah,
and in healthcare, we want to take least invasive approach first.
Oh, good.
That's not going to be our go-to, is to medicate a child. That's going to be, one of our last resorts. We want to make sure that the school environment, the home environment, the community is a healthy environment, that we've got systems in place for people to be well and plan for that. And then obviously, if we need to intervene and we need, if medication is necessary after we've tried, some other things that we know work, of course, we want that to be an option, and that can be really valuable, and we want to monitor it and make sure that it's in a responsible way. We have an epidemic right now from some irresponsible use of medications. The opioid crisis was a situation that was created, and unfortunately, a lot of our young people and families have bared the brunt of that fallout from that terrible crisis.
Well, and see, that's part of the issue is, when you look at the opioid crisis, people who really need the opioids are the ones suffering, right? Yeah, and the ones that are gaming the system or not taking care of their medications because of the family structure at home, and these kids are getting into it. But I want to go back for a second. So am I to understand right now, if I'm a parent of a kid and they've put my kid on maybe antidepressants, so let's start there, that they're putting a 15-year-old on antidepressants with no valid research of the effects on a 15-year-old mind. It's more of, and I don't want to embroil you in too much controversy, but if I were a parent, I'd be a little concerned about the fact that there's not a lot of research out there on what these drugs do to teenagers. Most of the research is on probably, I assume, people who sign up for studies and are in their middle ages.
What were the other interventions?
Yeah.
Was there family therapy, individual therapy? Was there an exercise program? We know that releasing endorphins through exercise can really help with depression. We know that a healthy diet can really help. We know that support systems. So, there's a lot of other things that are pretty easy to implement.
And in psychotherapy, and I think this is part of where the challenge or the negative stigma that psychotherapy gets. It's that, oh, well, I just talk about my problems. And the truth is, as psychotherapists, we have regular contact with the client, and when you see those subtle changes because of the medication, because when you are the person taking the medication, you may not see, and that's why you want to have your regular contact with the person who's trained, right? Where you're trained, and then you're also doing the psychotherapy part, where because it's not, because if truly antidepressants were the answer, then we should have lower numbers.
Right.
Because the numbers continue to increase, and so
if it was working, if it was a cure-all panacea, then we would just all take a pill and everything would be fine. But that's not the case at all.
Doctor, I want to ask a question on teenagers. I mean, are you aware of any programs at our public schools or any programs within the school systems that we're reaching out to teens, that we're trying to help teens? Because clearly,
actually, there is, and this is the thing. Okay, so I'm not part of, but I know that APS does contract with mental health providers to provide mental health services during school time. I don't know how many schools, I don't know the details, but they do have that. And they also, here in New Mexico, we have the Children's Code, and in the Children's Code, at age 14, kids can access mental health services without parent consent. Oh, wow. So, part of there are some systems in
is
play.
A 14-year-old really going to go?
Are they aware of those programs?
Well, I don't know how how they're referred or in the school system. I don't know how it works in the school system.
In a perfect world, our counselors and our school nurses, which we don't even have school nurses full-time anymore, but we have those support services in place for exactly what she's talking about.
One of the issues I have that we've talked about before is, and I'm going to probably round these numbers, but at least at APS and at some of the bigger school districts, there's one counselor for every 300 to 400 students. Where before they started cutting budgets, where it used to be one counselor for every 30.
They've gone even further. So now counseling, most of the counseling stuff is done by the teachers, right? Scheduling, all that stuff. That's all been put on the teachers in these advisory periods where the teachers go and set the schedules. So even though it might have freed up some counselors, I don't know that the counselors are really doing counseling work.
Well, again, I think we're short counselors, and those are areas that we've talked about. With your expertise, do you think that would help?
I think it's hard because there's so many factors that, I mean, I would be interested in understanding how is the system that APS, because I mean, they're hiring there's a lot of already mental health professionals already going into the school systems. So I just don't know which schools, I don't know how that works. And then the other thing too, I mean, the training of school counseling and school social work is different from mental health counseling too. That's the other thing. Right, because I don't know.
Because Sandra, we're running out of time a little bit. I want to go back to your book and then also talk about quickly, medication is not always the answer. And I want to really give a cautionary note to parents out there who maybe got a prescription for the kid, you fill the prescription, and you just, because I can see a busy parent with their hearts in the right place. Don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about, I'm not judging any parent. I want to be clear on that. But if your kid's on medication, maybe it's time to say, this is a synergistic thing that we better look at every element. You know what I mean? And just those cautionary notes I would give any parent that's watching right now.
And don't underestimate the information that you have about your child, right? That's your child. You know them very well. So we don't go to a doctor or health provider and just give them all the power, whatever you say, and and not undermine the parents' knowledge and information.
Right. I think that to empower, empower the parents that they do know their kids
you know your kid. Trust your knowledge and
your
instincts.
And you can see the changes in your kids.
Right.
And I think parents should be cautionary, because if you look at the side effects of some of these antidepressants, it's increased depression, it's suicidal thoughts, and I don't think people realize, so it has to be monitored. I think that would be the other thing that
I think too, one of the things that we've been pushing is at the public schools is, teachers are around. Are we training our teachers to notice this stuff, right? Because teachers are...
We get a little workshop, but you can imagine as a teacher, like, you're talking classes of 30 plus.
Right, that's what I'm
multiple classes.
And if you do go down that path, how, it's definitely walking on eggshells. I can tell you that.
That's a lot of responsibility to put on teachers.
I think there's something we have
I think
to do,
teachers have enough on their plate.
We got about 30 seconds left, as I know you're going to be leaving us after this segment. Sabrina will be sticking around. We'll talk a little bit more. But are there anything, with about 30 seconds to go, is there anything we haven't covered? I know you want to push that book. Is there anything else that we'd like to say before?
I love that. I think we just want to encourage parents to be involved in their kids' lives, and that you know your kid best, and it's okay. Oh gosh, thank you so much for welcoming a provider to help you with your kids. That's the other thing too.
Yes.
And here's the other thing. I'm just going to put this is the other thing. There's limited resources. There's limited mental health resources. I'm sorry. That's the other huge thing.
And if anybody's listening or anybody's paying attention, please just make sure you reach out to somebody, look for somebody. But anyway, we'll be back.
We'll be your contact number.
We'll be right back after this moment, and we'll put your contact down. We'll be right back after this moment.
Ryan Sewing and Vacuum is New Mexico's #1 Brother dealer. Brother's new Luminaire has a built-in projection system which helps with quilting, embroidering, and sewing. Ryan's has a variety of machines to satisfy quilters, sewers, embroiders, and long armors. We offer the finest vacuums like Miele, Riccar, and Lindhaus. Check out our fantastic selection of fabrics and sewing furniture. We also offer classes, repair, and financing. Drop by our store in Albuquerque and Santa Fe. Ryan Sewing and Vacuum, serving New Mexico for 30.
I'm Ben Lucero, president and owner of Indigo Mortgage. We are a locally owned and operated mortgage company right here in New Mexico. This means your loan officers and processors are right here to serve you. Indigo Mortgage offers better rates and terms than that of big banks and out-of-state lenders. Our mortgage divisions include residential, commercial, construction, reverse mortgages, and VA mortgage loans. Let us serve you with an exemplary level of care. Indigo Mortgage, because nobody cares more about your mortgage loan.
Welcome back to Let's Meet in the Middle. Joining us again is Sabrina Cooley. You are a nursing instructor, but even more fascinating, you spent a year of your life dealing with at-risk populations, on call 24/7, and one of the things you were worried about the most was the call, that possibility of one of your kiddos committing suicide. And we had talked about that before you came on, and I was like, that's a lot to deal with.
You have a question?
Yeah, well, I'm just giving a little bit background. And so what was the hardest thing in terms of watching those kids? What was the one thing that you thought would move them, that when that phone would ring, there was that thought in your back of your head that one of my kiddos could have made a really bad decision? I mean, what was the motivating factors behind that?
Yeah, it was a high-risk population, about 300 residential students that lived at their school. And you know, because of their history of trauma, drug abuse, sometimes neglect, estrangement from their family, whatever reasons, we had a definite higher risk for suicide. And so one of the first things that we did is we brought in some experts to just teach us how to approach this risk and how to best talk about this situation. So we had speakers every month come in from the hotline and different local organizations, and really to support the teachers that live there and the students and staff, and kind of to open up the conversation.
On that point, I want to bring it to you, Eric.
Yeah.
Because one of the reasons we started this show, and APS, Raquel Reedy, has sent out a statement because Eldorado High has had 3 suicides in the last 6 weeks. There was another shooting, but not a suicide this weekend. APS isn't here today because they canceled on us because they're having some emergency meetings about the suicide thing. But one in the superintendent's, she basically is pleading to have dialogue with your children at the home, and I get that.
Right.
But at the same time, one of the biggest complaints we've heard for the last 3 weeks from parents at Eldorado High is APS and the administration there will not address this.
Right.
And you're saying you're going to bring in experts.
Yeah.
So the question is for a teacher at Albuquerque High.
Right.
Is Albuquerque Public Schools, is the Albuquerque administration, are they bringing things into you as a teacher to recognize things? And I know you have a bunch of students.
We go through training, and we have to do these online trainings, and then they just, interestingly enough, brought in, it wasn't about that. It was, I think it was LGBTQ, how to recognize and how to deal with
What I'm saying is
LGBTQ.
Right now, are there suicide,
So, no,
issues at Albuquerque High?
I think in general, kids these days are more depressed. I mean, I come in, you could come into my first period and look at the look on these kids' faces. And I know some of it's lethargy, but I'm telling you, Jeff, there is this general malaise among this younger population that I don't know where they're getting their happiness from.
Right.
But you see what I'm saying?
No, I get it.
So did you feel like you had a lot of support and training?
No.
Yeah.
But that's my point. That's my point. Is like,
yeah, so I think that you can't go wrong having a little extra support and knowledge, especially when it comes to a topic that's as serious as teen suicide and as relevant. So one of the things we learned from the experts is, for teenagers, this is usually a certain period of time in their lives. If we can intervene and get them through this time, get them through the day or the week or whatever this period of time is, years later we look back and these are not people that are suicidal. So my takeaway was this was very hopeful, because if we're willing to support our teachers and fellow students to be able to have these conversations and say, look, it's not hopeless. I'm sitting right here in front of you. I care. We care.
For APS, for Eldorado, again, we're going off. The teachers didn't want to come on the air. We talked to the teachers. They didn't want to come on the air. The parents that brought this to us, one of the moms was one of the sons that had passed. She thought it was too soon for her to be on the show. So we get that.
Sure.
But one of the things that they came to me and Jackie was they were furious because they wanted to address this to the whole school, and APS and Eldorado would not address this. And so one of the issues is, I get all this. This thing is not going away. These kids are going to continue doing that, and we're seeing it. I got twin boys that are 11. We're literally seeing it at the 4th or 5th grade level. Last year in my son's class, my son and 3 other boys were being bullied by the teacher because they didn't like the way they were learning and the structure. So we see it at that, and that continues to move on. And I've talked to 9, 10, 11-year-old kids that feel this stress, and the stress is coming from, I got to do homework. The stress is coming from my teacher doesn't like me. My stress is coming from other things. So I guess as in the public schools, what are we doing to help? Because this isn't going to go away. So what can we do?
Yeah, we should be talking to every student. One of the things at our clinic, we noticed that students would come in and say, you know, I think my roommate has a plan to take his life, and I'm really scared that I'm going to say the wrong thing and it's going to make him do it. And so just being able to talk to all the students and say, you know, you're not going to say anything that's going to make someone want to kill themselves. Just open up the conversation and say, I'm worried about you. Are you okay? You know, I know that you have a plan. I have to tell someone. It really is important for all students to know that it could be them that has that conversation that saves somebody's life. So it's worth training everybody.
You know, within your clinic, one of the things we talked about this past weekend at my reunion was so many opportunities came our way that have now been cut. That's just why the reunion was actually a fundraiser, right? Because we've cut so many opportunities away for these kids. So we just allocated $600 million more to education. We're giving teachers more money, which we agree with. We have found over $1 billion. APS is now on the docket to ask for more money to build more buildings. They've spent $30 million on buildings. But they're doing nothing to engage the kids and showing kids other opportunities. And I agree with you, Sabrina, that get them through the day, get them through that moment. But we have to continue to build opportunities for these kids
and
within that
support
environment.
Services, mental health, we have to destigmatize. Mental health is health. And if our kids are not healthy, they're not going to learn anything. So really committing to investing in mental health services, support services, you know, having school nurses, that makes a really huge difference because
that's what I'm saying too, is like in terms of these billions, because you're throwing out big numbers, why aren't schools having music programs? Why aren't schools having why aren't schools having school nurses? Like you can have these big beautiful buildings full of kids with nobody to support them, and I think that's an issue.
I think we can have both. We can have beautiful, healthy buildings. We can have great school lunch. We can have support services. We spend a lot of money on our education system, so we can't afford it.
As a mom,
yes.
What's your number one concern as a mom? As a mom, what would be a solution for you that you see going down as a mom with young kids?
Yeah. Well, I'm a mom of a teenage girl, and so this is a real what if, scenario. I want my daughter and her friends and any other teens that we have we're in contact with to know that, you know, they are not alone and things are not hopeless. If they feel backed into a corner or they feel that there's no hope in their life, everything in the media is so negative, everything in their life might seem overwhelming at a certain point in time, but that it's not hopeless. What you're feeling today is not how you're going to feel next week, next month, next year. So just to give kids that message that, you know, people care about you, life is not hopeless, even when things seem overwhelming, to reach out to somebody.
And I'm going to say something a little revolutionary, and you might not like this, and you might not like it too, but I know that this is not going away. But as a school principal, if you could get your school community to agree that at the start of the school day, these are not allowed but you know, they've tried this. And you know where they get the biggest pushback from?
From the parents.
Parents. Parents texting and calling their kids during class time.
Well, if kids are going to have this tool, let's give them some information. Let's put a hotline number on there. If you know anybody who is suicidal, call this number. If you're feeling suicidal, call this number. If they're going to have access to it anyway, then let's give them some tools on their device that
you know they can send these Amber Alerts out, and it hits your whole phone. How hard would it be to send an Amber Alert out that just says, hey, if you're feeling depressed, give us a call.
Sure.
You know, and that hits everybody. So don't you get those?
Oh, absolutely.
And that's a simple, low-level solution.
Well, I think you know, part of the show is let's meet in the middle, but part of the show is let's have a communication. Let's have a conversation.
Sure.
To send out a press release, basically saying parents need to have a dialogue with their kids. That's important. But if we're not giving teachers, if we're not giving administrators of their schools opportunities and support, then that's not good. All I can tell you is during the whole campaign and for the last 5 years, all I've heard is there's not enough social support, not enough counselor support within the school systems. We continue cutting those services back. We're putting more and more pressure on our children. And another thing too is the way our kids are learning today. I'm not saying that's good or bad. One of my sons struggled last year learning within that box, was being punished 60 times in a timeout where the teacher was bullying him and other friends, or other boys, and then the kids in the class, or the kids in the schoolroom or the playground started bullying them, and then they're afraid to ask for help. So we saw it at 10 years of age. So it goes back to that leadership in that classroom, but we have to give the resources.
But Jeff, I'm gonna defend teacher. I'm gonna give you a little pushback.
By the way,
here. But look,
I'm supporting teachers all the way.
But
we got to give them more support.
Right now, supporting teachers. The number one thing you can do to support teachers is get smaller class sizes.
Absolutely.
Which not happening anytime soon. Number one.
We're spending
number
millions
two,
of dollars on new buildings.
Why are they dumping counseling on teachers? So teachers are having organize schedules, look at transcripts. Like if there's not enough, trust me, a teacher's plate right now is full.
But we agree with that.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about. Those are areas that we need to get away from teachers.
And if you talk about a teacher, though, that maybe is like bullying a kid, whatever, or putting a kid in time, the problem is that teacher's overwhelmed. That teacher's, and maybe taking it out on your kids, but think about that job at $40,000 a year. With 30 other kids in the class, and I don't know your class sizes at that school, 22. I mean, that's a lot at that age to deal with.
The fact that this teacher came to the conclusion that that was the solution is a
problem.
So we need more support.
There wasn't information given.
We have about 15 seconds left. Is there anything that you want to wrap up that we may not have covered?
Thank you. Thank you for really taking this topic seriously. I really hope that the more conversations about teen suicide that happen, the more we destigmatize this and have this be a more comfortable conversation that we can have.
Well, I think what most people, we just want to take away from anything else is to make sure that we're having conversations with our kids. So anyway, thanks for joining us today. We'll be back right after this commercial moment.
Ryan Sewing and Vacuum is New Mexico's #1 Brother dealer. Brother's new Luminaire has a built-in projection system which helps with quilting, embroidering, and sewing. Ryan's has a variety of machines to satisfy quilters, sewers, embroiders, and long armors. We offer the finest vacuums like Miele, Riccar, and Lindhaus. Check out our fantastic selection of fabrics and sewing furniture. We also offer classes, repair, and financing. Drop by our store in Albuquerque and Santa Fe. Ryan Sewing and Vacuum, serving New Mexico for 37 years.
I'm Ben Lucero, president and owner of Indigo Mortgage. We are a locally owned and operated mortgage company right here in New Mexico. This means your loan officers and processors are right here to serve you. Indigo Mortgage offers better rates and terms than that of big banks and out-of-state lenders. Our mortgage divisions include residential, commercial, construction, reverse mortgages, and VA mortgage loans. Let us serve you with an exemplary level of care. Indigo Mortgage, because nobody cares more about your mortgage loan.
Welcome back to Let's Meet in the Middle. Jeff Apodaca, Eric Strauss. Look, this is one of the more poignant shows we've had.
Absolutely.
I know you wanted to talk about some stuff on Facebook.
Well, no, don't forget we're always live on Facebook through the show, and so we try and answer the stuff on Facebook. And if you missed part of the show or didn't TiVo us, which you should TiVo us every week, by the way, if you haven't done that, you can always find us on Facebook at Let's Meet in the Middle, our YouTube channel, Let's Meet in the Middle. We put all the shows there, so if you missed today's show, and it's the topic's extremely important.
Yeah, this is an important topic, number one. And number two, just a side note, if you mention Let's Meet in the Middle, Ryan Solenbach, he has a ton of specials running. He'll give you extra discounts if you mention the show. So please get in there, support the sponsors that support the show if you like the show.
Ben Lucero,
great guy, by the way.
Ben's telling me they're getting phone calls and they're getting some. So if you're watching our show, you like it, you need a mortgage.
Please.
Ben's done my mortgage. He's a great guy and does a great job.
So I wanted to start with this Netflix episode. This show. It's on its I think it's 3rd season now. And
someone brought that up
13
the other day.
reasons.
13 reasons. My
so
wife and I
get this. So
Jackie
this 13 reasons begins with the suicide of this girl, Hannah Baker. And the show, I think, I haven't watched the show, but I've read about it.
Right.
And what was alarming was researchers said in the days following the premiere of 13 Reasons, they found a significant spike in internet searches using the term how to commit suicide. And we've seen 3 suicides in the past 6 weeks at Eldorado, and there's this shockingly, this contagious effect. Can you believe that? With suicides, it's a contagious effect. So your friend offs themselves, and you would think, God, that's horrible. I would never do that. And quite the opposite lends itself.
I think that's why parents, and again, for our audience that might just tuned in, we brought this topic up because parents and mothers have reached out to Jackie and I about what they're more upset about at Eldorado is that the administration there, APS, is not bringing this to the attention of the kids. And they're afraid
of
probably
the community, of that.
And so what they brought up is, I can't believe they just, as they put it under the rug, business as usual, just go on with your day, no discussion with the other kids. And I think it's a huge important. We just had 2 experts on that have dealt with this from around not only New Mexico, around the country. And the number one thing that I took away was more counseling, more communications, but more importantly, I think we all know this. Just get through the day, get through the moment. Statistics show there's a 22% more increase in 9th graders committing suicide than 12th graders.
I'll give you just from 2017, because there's not a lot of current research, because it's always back.
17 is probably
right?
the most. Yeah,
so
it's probably the most current.
32% of high school students experienced ongoing feelings of sadness.
Right.
17% said they'd seriously considered attempting suicide. 17%. I mean, those are huge numbers. And I think the point of this show today has been, there's so much in the media that's sucking up the headlines between our president or whatever it is. And I think at home we need to recognize the general malaise and negativity that's surrounding our entire society right now. And it is. If it's not gun control and mass shootings, it's the climate change and, this dark feeling when we live in a country of some of the most blessed people on the planet. But that's what I'm trying to get to the point of, that depression is real. Teenagers are dealing with some heavy stuff.
Right.
And we need to be conversating with our kids, because that's one of my major takeaways today.
No, and I agree. And one of the things that I respect teachers. I respect your profession. We've talked about it over breakfast. Teachers have enough thrown on them right now. We need to have our teachers paid well. We need to have our teachers within the classroom teaching. Everything else, we should have more counselors in there. We should have more opportunities. We should have more programs. We continue to spend more money on buildings, more money on administrative needs instead of in the classroom, where there's a bigger need for that, and more opportunities for kids. And if you talk to our experts, it's about surviving that moment and the next day.
And if I'm a parent of one of those kids, and thoughts and prayers are with you, parents, let me tell you that.
But we're doing this show because of the parents, because we want to bring this to everybody's attention.
I want those parents to speak out and say, of every dollar, how much of that money is going back to students? Isn't that a question we should all be asking as taxpayers? If there's $1, how come maybe 10 cents is getting back into the classroom?
I think it's, I think, don't quote me on this, if I recall back, it's like 48 cents to the dollar goes in the classroom. Everything else is outside.
48, less than half.
It's less than half goes into the classroom.
Less than half.
Which we've talked about it should be 70. And by the way, when you look at school districts that are doing well, when you have school districts that have this,
I would guarantee that more of the money,
is going into the classroom.
More of the money is going back in the classroom.
Absolutely.
And again, I'm just going to remind parents, and I know there's a lot of push on, I want my kid to have a great teacher. I'm just going to remind you, if you can make more money managing a McDonald's than you can teaching a young person, what quality of teacher are you going to get in the classroom?
And we agree with that. That's.
I mean, I'm going to keep banging this drum.
I know, and you and I agree on that 100%.
So I just saw $58,000 for a starting officer. That's the recruitment billboard I drove by. So you tell me why a starting teacher is low 40s?
Well, but I also want to talk to our audience right now, because we're acting like only parents are watching this. Look, if there's any teenagers watching this, there is help, and trust me,
people care.
Trust me, as a guy that went through cancer in high school and lost his senior year, basically, there are some tough times back there for no matter what. So look, there's always a moment that you can reach out to help. There's always somebody to reach out. and teachers, you're the first line of defense because you're right there. But parents, more importantly, they have to be engaged. Our community has to be engaged. We're doing this show more importantly because we want to make sure that we bring it to the attention because to be very frank, I didn't realize that we were ranked 5th in the country.
That's alarming.
That's alarming. I didn't realize that we had 3.
Change in appearance, change in emotions. Don't let your kid have a computer. And look, I'm telling you right now, gaming systems, computers, all of that needs to be in an office where the family shares in that.
Right.
You do not let a kid have a computer in their room, a TV in their room. Their room should not be a place where they go run and hide. They need to be a functioning part of the family. If there's one biggest piece of advice I'll give parents out there, don't let your kid check out. Be accountable as a parent.
And kids, look, let's, if you're going through some tough times right now, reach out to us, reach out to the school, reach out to your friends.
There's people who care about you.
And friends, speak out and talk. But I think we had some good conversations today.
Yeah, I do.
I think more importantly, as community leaders, we need to push for more funding to go towards these kids, to go into the classroom and help out there. I think that's going to be key. So anyway, don't forget, we'll be back to wrap up the show after these commercial breaks from Indigo Mortgage and Ryan Soenvac.
And we're definitely in the middle today.
We're definitely in the
middle.
middle.
We're all here for you.
We'll be back right after this.
I'm Ben Lucero, president and owner of Indigo Mortgage. We are a locally owned and operated mortgage company right here in New Mexico. This means your loan officers and processors are right here to serve you. Indigo Mortgage offers better rates and terms than that of big banks and out-of-state lenders. Our mortgage divisions include residential, commercial, construction, reverse mortgages, and VA mortgage loans. Let us serve you with an exemplary level of care. Indigo Mortgage, because nobody cares more about your mortgage loan.
Ryan Sewing and Vacuum is New Mexico's #1 brother dealer. Brother's new Luminaire has a built-in projection system which helps with quilting, embroidering, and sewing. Ryan's has a variety of machines to satisfy quilters, sewers, embroiders, and long armors. We offer the finest vacuums like Miele, Riccar, and Lindhaus. Check out our fantastic selection of fabrics and sewing furniture. We also offer classes, repair, and financing. Drop by our store in Albuquerque and Santa Fe. Ryan Sewing and Vacuum, serving New Mexico for 37 years.
Welcome back to Let's Meet in the Middle. Again, find us on Facebook.
Let's Meet in the Middle, and
we'll take your questions and
comments. And if you missed part of the show, we're always Facebook Live, but we go back through and answer some of the stuff throughout the week.
And if people have a topic they care about, certainly hit us up on Facebook. We're always open to ideas and topics about the show. And if you have resources about today's topic, we'd love to get those on out to people, right? To get help for kids and people that are depressed.
But more importantly, look, we know this is we wanted to have this conversation with some experts.
We want to shed light on stuff.
Shed light on it. So parents, we know this is happening. It's rampant. We're one of the highest ranked states in the country. I mean, for 22% of females in this country and 17% of males from 9th to 12th grade seriously considered suicide is just unacceptable. And so we need to reach out as community leaders. We need to reach out to make sure that we're helping parents, helping families, helping our community, and more importantly, making sure that resources that our public schools have, that it's going to resources to help kids.
And the one thing I will say is there is no perfect parent or perfect kid. And sometimes we as parents will hide all the bad stuff about our families and our kids instead of talking to other parents and supporting each other. And I think that's one thing we really need to think about moving forward is, as parents, we need to be not afraid to kind of, I don't know, air your dirty laundry, I guess. I know you don't want to put people up in your business, but reach out to other parents because there's support systems there.
And it's about open communications, and I'll reach out to the superintendent again. I think we should be talking publicly about the suicides going on at Eldorado High School, whether it's Albuquerque High or other schools. We need to communicate about that because we have to tell kids, just get through the moment, get through the day.
Get through the day.
Anyway, thanks for joining us this week. Really appreciate it. We'll be back next week and watch us every night.
Go out and make a difference in the world.
Hey, and never give up. Find a way.